when I started my career at Nucor, our commercial group came to me pretty early and asked if I would be interested in sales. I said, absolutely not, never. Not something I'm interested in. Well, never say never. As I transitioned through my roles as a metallurgist and got involved in different accounts, I became in charge of our automotive business. When you're dealing in the automotive world, at least from the steel side, there really are no technical discussions. Everything has commercial connotations to it as well. As I got more and more involved in these meetings and these discussions, I realized that my favorite part of the job was dealing with the customers and was dealing with the commercial issues that came up. So I made the decision to transition to a role as district sales manager with Nucor. That was a very interesting transition, going from being an engineer, being in a world of black and white to a world of gray was very interesting. In sales with Nucor, there's almost never a right answer. There's many different ways that you can solve a problem. In fact, when I interviewed for my most current position, I was given a lot of hypothetical questions. How would you react in this situation? How would you react in that situation? My answer to pretty much every single question was, it depends. Now, there are some benefits to having an engineering mindset in the commercial role. You have the ability to plan, problem solve, and analyze data quickly. On the flip side, there are also some negatives. One of the most common ones I run across is the fact that many times you're negotiating against somebody that's speaking with feelings, and you're used to dealing with facts and data. Now, there are two different types of negotiations that I commonly find myself in. Those are internal negotiations and external negotiations. An external negotiation may be with a customer, a supplier, or a vendor. The key to an external negotiation, from my experience, is to plan. The first thing you have to do is sit down and make a plan for that negotiation. There are certain things that you have to accomplish in that negotiation. These are your must-haves, things that you cannot proceed without. You also have items that you want. They're not really that important to you, but they'd be nice to have. When you get into the negotiation, you don't really want to spend a lot of time negotiating on the must-haves because those are things that you need to be successful. Anytime your customer comes to you and wants to negotiate on one of the things that you want, you need to make sure you get something in return for anything you give up. If you give up a little bit of price, you need to get more volume in return. Now, another important key is to remember what is most important to the other side and try to figure that out. In the steel industry, a lot of times that's price. That's what a lot of people want to negotiate on. You don't want to get wrapped up in just one item because when you do that, you have no room for give and take when you're negotiating on just one item. When you sit down for the negotiation, no matter how well you plan, it's not going to go the way you planned it. And that's where being an engineer can be very helpful. You can adapt, change on the fly, problem solve, quickly analyze data. While you're doing that, it's important to control your reactions. I was in a large negotiation that concluded a few months ago. We were negotiating a piece of business for almost 9 months. And as we were going through some of the details, we're sitting there and the customer throws something in front of us that's an absolute bombshell, something that we cannot accept, something we're not even willing to negotiate on. So we sat there with no reaction. We didn't say anything, we didn't address it, we just kept moving forward. The customer ended up pulling that off the table. On the flip side, sometimes taking something that's really not that big a deal to you and having a reaction to will gain you some concessions in the end. Now, when it comes to internal negotiations, negotiating within your own organization, I find that this can be the most challenging negotiation you have. When it comes to an internal negotiation, it's very important to know your audience and tailor your message accordingly. When you're talking to IT folks, they're probably not all that interested in your internal rate of return, but the accounting group is going to be very interested in those numbers. Make sure you tailor that message accordingly. One of the challenges of negotiating internally is when you are trying to negotiate with facts and the other person is negotiating with feelings. That comes up quite a bit. Had an issue recently where somebody came to me and said, hey, we lost this piece of business for this reason. I feel that this is why we lost it. And I said, no, here are the facts. Here's the reasons we lost the business. And they didn't want to listen to the facts. They were interested only in feelings. The way I solved that situation was I came back and said, okay, well, here's why I think we lost the business, and here's what I feel we can do to gain this piece of business back. The other thing that you may run across is somebody that wants to deal with an incomplete set of facts. They only want to look at one small piece of the data and use that to draw their conclusion. Had one of our engineers come to me a couple weeks ago and say, this business isn't good for us. It's light gauge, it's high strength. We're not making as much money on this piece of business as we should. He was looking at one specific piece of data. When I showed him the entire picture, he was able to understand that the entire package is important to us. So ultimately, when you're negotiating, the one thing that never changes is every single negotiation is different. And when it comes down to the details, it depends. Thank you.